Welcome to Short and to the Point, a podcast from the Comeback in Awful Announcing. Here's your host, Jessica Kleinschmidt.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Short and to the Point here on Awful Announcing and the Comeback. Your girl, Jess Kleinschmidt, bringing you more of the baseball content because we're in the midst of a playoff run and it's so exciting. But before we talk more about MLB playoffs, which you can follow everything on our websites, my biggest question heading into the offseason has to do with the San Diego Padres. The good news is it looks like they're going to hold on to my boy Bob Melvin through his contractual obligations in 2024, but that's just the tip of the iceberg. We have no idea what is going to happen this offseason come winter meetings. A lot of guys are going to probably be leaving. Aren't a lot of arbitration eligible guys that perhaps they would hold on to. Josh Hader looks to be gone. Blake Snell, who is probably the Cy Young Award winner, will not be reunited with the San Diego Padres. Probably they're cutting a lot of money, which is going to be interesting. So general manager and president of baseball operations is going to have to do a lot of GMing this offseason. I couldn't think of a better guest than Steve Woods from Ben Woods over there at 97.3, The Fan in San Diego. His approach is so important to the game. He's definitely an extension of the fans. He does put on his journalistic hat and interview A.J. Preller every now and then, does a great job there. So make sure you are following his stuff at 97.3, The Fan in San Diego. But for now, here is my chat with him. All right, my dear friend Steve joins me. How are you, my friend?
I am fantastic. How are you?
I'm good. And like I told you before we pressed record, I was listening to the show earlier, of course, Ben and Woods on The Fan, and you guys did have AJ Preller on the show. We'll get in depth with that later, but let's talk about the Padres. Obviously, I'm connected to them. Bob was my manager for years, and to see what happened this season, it's really interesting because, and this is a term that's been used, it's the most disappointing season in franchise history. Not the worst season as far as wins and losses, because that doesn't always dictate what a season can bring. But when I say that and I say, hey, this was the most disappointing season, what does that mean to you?
You know, we have even made the point that had they backed into the playoffs and then won the World Series, we would have been like, you know what, this sucks. This is the worst World Series championship of all time. You honestly didn't get a chance to enjoy the regular season at all because it was feast or famine, which is just not the way that you sustain winning, obviously. And the fact that they didn't win 4 games in a row, it's like until the end, it was staggering. I mean, we just couldn't wrap our head around it. Jessica, we had some of the smartest baseball minds in the country. People like Eno Saris, he does a weekly on our show, and he's the best. He was telling us in May and June, hey, don't worry, like they're going to regress to the mean. Things are going to change. They're going to turn the corner. And so we kept believing it. We kept, putting that message out because I think we all believed it as well. And then when it didn't happen until September and they were already out of the race, we were like, you've got to be kidding me. Like it was shocking. It's still shocking. And, there's some lifers around town, 50 plus years of fandom. And they're like, hey, you know what? We've seen worse teams. And I'm like, okay, that's fair. You've seen less talented players. But I don't know what's harder, like seeing less talented players giving their all or seeing really, really talented players not be able to come together to win, 88, 90, 95 games, which we all thought they would.
Well, and it's interesting because all the monetary value that went into that team between them, Mets, and Yankees, it was historically bad. The top 3 spending teams aren't making the playoffs. And it's interesting that you mentioned the baseball minds because as a purist of the game, statistics were obviously always a part, but the advanced analytics were introduced recently. So where does that kind of come in where the numbers are supposed to show what's supposed to happen on the field and they're not? We hear stories about the egos going in the clubhouse, and the field is certainly important. So when you have somebody like Preller saying like this is supposed to happen and it's not going out on the field, you can't be mad at the statistics and the analytics. But what's the relationship there if the numbers aren't adding up?
I've come around a lot. I I never thought they were the boogeyman, as a lot of people do, and a lot of the old school baseball. Oh, no analytics, none, all feel. And it's like, well, that's dumb. That's dumb. You don't live your life that way. We all try to maximize what we can out of what we have. And I can put it in terms like for me personally. I started playing golf when after the with it in the middle of the pandemic. I'd never really played it before, and I took golf lessons. And he took me to a certain level to where like I understood the basics. And then I went to Golf Tech, which has like, and then when a guy's telling you like, no, put your hands here, you're like, okay, I'm doing that, and he's like, no, you're not. And then when you actually see it, and you're like, oh yeah, I'm not. You can actually see it on video, and it's slowed down, and you can learn so much with biomechanics and analytics and how can we maximize what we have. The problem was never the talent, and I think the problem was, and we talked to Kyle Bodie recently, who runs Driveline. Love Kyle. I think he's a visionary. Well, he's so far beyond his time. um, and he said, yeah, you know what? The Padres were early adopters, but now they're chasing it. So they got in, they maybe spent some money, they did some things, and then other teams started to lap them, and it's like, yeah, but we already put all this money into this. Why do we need to continue to why do you have to get the new iPhone every single year it comes out, right? Like, well, it's the latest technology and you want to be up on it. And I think the Padres are just now coming around. We just opened a biomechanics lab at Point Loma Nazarene. I expect it to help. I don't think it's going to hurt. But I think, a lot of teams, you have to almost do stuff you almost have to do stuff, Jessica, for just to cover your own ass. To be like, no, we're doing it. Like, look, we've spent all this money on this and that and the other. The Yankees spent a ton of money on analytics, a ton, and they have a huge analytics department. They were terrible this year too. They were terrible. So it's just baseball. It's the game we love. It's also the game we can hate at times because it just doesn't translate all the time. So there needs to be that mixture of both, numbers, biomechanics, analytics, and feel for the game and desire to win.
Yeah, and you hear the term "that's baseball" because you see it, right? And some things just don't make sense. You have the
Makes no sense.
numbers, you have the feel, you have the eye test, all of it. It doesn't work out, and that kind of is a perfect segue to my guy Bob Melvin. I got to watch him use the experimental 2020 rules. He embraced them, and an old school guy. So the good news is it looks like he's going to be returning in 2024. He confirmed it. So did A.J. Preller. And as the season went on, we can all confirm and agree that it wasn't Bob's fault. And I make the joke, if Bob can't fix that team, nobody can. And so when it comes to that, since it wasn't Bob's fault, how do you think is the media understanding of that? And how are they embracing him? How are the fans embracing him? It's such a difficult decision because it's easier to fire one guy than it is 26, 28 guys, 40 guys, what have you. So how has the media embraced him and our fans, giving him a little bit, I don't want to say a pass, but understanding it's not all on him?
It's the fact that, you're not going to get any negative stuff from us on Bob Melvin. You question managers' decisions, and I always make the point of saying on the air when I talk about it is, hey man, we don't know a fingernail's worth of what he knows, not only about the game of baseball, but about what's going on with his current team. So it's always so easy and fun to go to Twitter and go, why would you use him there? Right. And it's like, well, if I was a manager, this is why I'd be a terrible manager, because I would be on Twitter going, well, let me tell you something, moron. You don't know that he's got a tweaked knee. You don't know that his slider, we're working on it. You don't know this. You don't know that. And he's not going to do that. He's confident in his decisions. Has Bob Melvin made mistakes as a manager? Yeah, they all do. Everybody does. And, the thing I love about him is he's so steady. And look, to be honest with you, he reminds me of my literal father, my actual dad. He literally, like, they look alike, their mannerisms are the same. It's almost a little bit weird when I talk to him. So obviously, he has a special place in my heart. Also, I got to take my son to his first playoff game last year and against the Phillies at home, and that's because of Bob Melvin, and so that was pretty special. And he's just a great dude. He's a great guy. He's smart as hell. He gets it. The players all respect him. He didn't lose the clubhouse. He lets those guys, those high priced, high paid guys, he let them figure it out. And maybe he let them figure it out a little bit too long this season. But I think he's going to learn, a little bit more about what it means, to have some of those guys. That's the first time anybody really has had four guys like that, in the locker room together, and it couldn't have been easy to manage, and I don't think it was.
Yeah, and I was thinking about that just recently. He managed all kinds of people, and everybody's a former A, right? So whether they're getting paid, everybody is. And he was kind of in his prime during that 2012 season, and they weren't the biggest name guys. I mean, this is before the Matt Chapmans and the Matt Olsons of the world. And I'm glad that you mentioned it because he lets them be themselves. And that's got to be kind of difficult to watch when you kind of need to think about the egos in that clubhouse. This is me just speaking on the reports that I've heard. I've spent maybe 15 minutes in a Padres clubhouse this season, and it was in a visiting one, so I didn't get the full effect. But I also know that that's got to be difficult too. And Kotz did it too in a 100+ winning or losing season, to not micromanage that. I mean, that takes a lot of skills, and so do you think that he was hearing, and this is just me speculating, get your boys together, get them together because something needs to happen, but I don't foresee him ever being like that. And how would you approach that, knowing looks like communication was off, there was a buffer there, it was don't shoot the messenger vibes, it was just, I felt like there were a lot of things that had nothing to do with baseball.
Yeah, I think there was, first and foremost, there was a pretty severe lack of depth on this team. And I didn't see it at first. I was really caught up, I think, like a lot of Padre fans, in the big splashy signings. And, Tatis will be back, and that's great. With automatic wins when he comes back. Frankly, we got more out of our starting pitchers than I ever thought we would with Lugo and Walker. They were ungodly good. Nick Martinez is a guy that did everything asked of him. He needed a more defined role, I think. But it came from a serious lack of depth at the beginning of the season. And then he always says, I want to give these guys a rest. I need to give them the rest. We had nobody else because the guys he wanted to rest, they weren't performing. So they're like, no, we want to hit our way out of this slump. We want to be on the field. And Bob's like, okay. I mean, what are you going to do? That's how you get out of a slump, is to hit your way out of it. And so I just think he got caught, early. And I think, the players got caught a little bit early going, oh, we can roll out of bed and win 90 games. We don't even have to really, look at me and look what I've done. Here's the back of my baseball card. We're going to roll out of bed and we're going to win 90 games. The question is, can we win 110? And I think everybody, including me, Ben, Paul, the media, everybody, I think we all bought into the hype and didn't take, a magnifying glass to this roster, which we should have, and said, whoa, 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 whoa. So if he goes down and he goes down, these are the guys that you have to come up. I mean, we had guys that we were bringing up, Jess. The record was staggeringly bad, on guys when Musgrove would go down for a start. The guys that come up, it's not their fault. They're grinding, they're trying. But a lot of those guys probably had no business being at the big league level, and that's okay. I mean, that's going to happen. But it really snowballed so quickly at the beginning of the year. Still hard for me to believe this season's over. I've never been happier that a season ended, though. Honestly, I could not do it anymore. We'll win 12-1, against a good pitcher, and then the next day some rookie making his third start with a 7 ERA no hits us for 7 innings, and Manny's not sitting, Xander's not sitting, Soto's not sitting, and Tatis isn't sitting. You're like, what the hell's going on here? Yeah. So it just snowballed so quickly, and it was excruciating to watch. I mean, I've been talking to A's fans. I'm sorry, but
we weren't disappointed. We
disappointed.
We knew it was going to be the loss record that it was. Yeah. I had a blast to this season because I knew the win-loss record was 4th or 5th in line of things that we were stressed about.
And you got to see some guys like Brent Rooker and dudes like that, who I'm a huge fan of, go out there and hit 25 plus bombs. And be available and find his way. And there's a lot of good sources. I love Mark Kotze, have known him, his wife Jamie, for years. Legend in my eyes. I think he's a legend. I think what he did this year is incredible. Not absolutely pulling his hair out. I think Bob Melvin had a tougher year than Mark Kotze did. I'll be honest.
I absolutely agree. And I give credit where credit is due, as Kotz had to answer all the Las Vegas questions. And I appreciate him for that. I'm glad you mentioned Rooker, because we had obviously not just Rooker, but Este Uri Ruiz, who are both Padres. And we asked Ruiz, because Rooker was the hottest guy in baseball in April and May. And we asked Este, like, what's the deal with this guy? What's working? And Este's like, he's always been this way. He just needed more, at bats. And then so we asked Rooker, we asked Rooker what was working for him. He's like, I've always been this way. So they were always like that. And it was just kind of cool that Rooker got to be with one team all season. Hopefully we can get him on the show soon, because he's a great interview.
I'd love to talk to him.
Oh, he's great. And so for my question is, player wise, who do you think could have been the biggest disappointment that maybe isn't an easy answer? Or, maybe Juan Soto could have, Juan Soto did well, but was there a certain player that perhaps you would have liked to see more of?
Yeah, there's a bunch. Injuries are injuries. I get it. I think Jake Cronenworth really is a player I love. And I actually expected him to have kind of a monster year. I thought honestly, pitchers, it's a natural thing to look at a lineup and go, okay, well, these guys I can't let beat me. And you take your foot off the gas. And I asked big league pitchers, big league managers, former big league managers, former big league pitchers, does that happen? And the canned answer is, well, it's the big leagues. They're all here for a reason. But their honest answer is, oh, yeah. You look at a lineup and go, okay, he's not going to beat me and he's not going to beat me. I can get the other guys out, no problem. Just got to really pitch carefully to Manny, Tatis, Soto, Xander. And then your natural inclination to say, oh, here's Jake Cronenworth. I'm going to groove him a fastball and get ahead. And he's going to, he hits it over the fence. So I talked to Jake about it. He talked about it. He thought he was going to have a good year. He just didn't. And he had to, move positions. I love him. He plays hard. I thought he, obviously could have had a better year. I thought, Yu Darvish scuffled a lot this year. He was banged up. Joe Musgrove had a really weird year. When he was on the mound, he was phenomenal, but he dropped a kettlebell on his foot. Just a weird year altogether. I thought Tatis was fantastic. He's going to win a Gold Glove. Trent Grisham is another one he's probably the player that makes Padre fans pull their hair out the most, because if I'm a pitcher, I'm like, he's the number one guy I want behind me. That's it. I only want Trent Grisham playing center field. That's it. But at the dish, he's got 20, 25 home run power. He just seems not confident. He seems he walks, he'll walk a lot. He's just a frustrating player, because you see talent oozing out of him. And when he's locked in, he's really good, but he just never could get in the groove. So I'd say Crony and Grish, man, if those guys have just had average years, who knows what could have happened early in the season.
What does a good year look like for Jake Cronenworth?
He's regressed a little bit every year, just a touch. I don't know why I believe in him as much as I do, other than the fact that I've just gotten to talk to him probably the most out of any of the guys on the squad. I know he puts the work in. I know he's talented. He's the right fit. He's a guy you want on your team. His OPS at second base was like a million points higher than his OPS at first. You expect more from your first baseman in slug and home runs and everything else. I just think he was trying to do too much. So I think if he shuts, he's 20 home run guy. I would love if he hit 275, played incredible defense, 250, 275 these days. 20 bombs, great second base, no problem whatsoever. I think that's fantastic.
But it's also kind of interesting. You mentioned the pulling the hair out, and it feels like that is the theme of the team, because of all the monetary value, the analytics, like this should be working. Why isn't it working? And it's kind of like, and the freak accidents, the weirdness, all of it, like that's what ultimately creates disappointment because, like I said, covering the A's, we knew what we were getting into. Sometimes I'd watch a game and it's like, yeah, we understood it was 100+ loss season, but there were games that I was frustrated with because we should have won those. Right. So imagine that times 162. That's tough. So that's why the frustration is there. And I was very high on the Padres heading into the season. They were my NL West team to beat, and that was not even just being biased toward Bob Melvin, which I always am, but it was just kind of one of those things. So I could imagine how that is, especially because I'm not saying fans came out of nowhere because they've always been there, but they've been waiting for that moment. They were waiting for the moment to say, this is the time.
They were incredible this year. 3 million fans through the turnstiles there. You have an exciting team, so mission accomplished there. You put guys on the field. That you want to pay money to go see. Like you get to watch Juan Soto and Fernando Tatis and Manny Machado. I mean, you're talking those three guys right there. I mean, you're just talking about three of the most electric that I've ever seen covering baseball, watching baseball, playing baseball. When they're all locked in, my God. I mean, Tatis is still a freak. He's going to win a Gold Glove in his first year in the position. Juan Soto, to watch him hit every day has been incredible. Manny Machado playing third base when he's healthy. There's nobody like him. I don't care what anybody says. He makes the impossible play look so routine. We have been taking it for granted so much now, his incredible defense, that it's like, when he makes a great play, I'm like, good, he should have, because that's what he does. So you have players that you want to go see. But yeah, I just think at the end of the day, man, I really do. I feel like they're like, we can roll out of bed and win 100 games, 90 games. I think that's just the baseline.
I agree. And I love Manny Machado. I love watching him play. I'm right there with you. So let's talk, because I was listening to the show earlier. You guys had A.J. Preller on, and we kind of talked about it. Didn't really say anything in addition to the Zoom that he kind of gave all of the media. What did he say in the Zoom, and what did he offer you guys extra, if anything?
He's a tough interview. He doesn't. I like conversation, and I think A.J. Preller, honest to God, he's the only interview that I actually write my questions out for, because I have to. If I have Bob, no, it's not going to be a natural conversation, and that's what I like to do the best. In spring training, when we sit down with players, I don't have one single solitary question written out. I may think about them a little bit, but it is, how you doing? What's up? How you feeling? And you go from there. With AJ, he's just not going to give you anything. And, we always catch a lot of grief after a Preller interview. And if you listen today, I pressed him on a couple of questions. He didn't answer them still. So what am I going to do? Press him again? For the third time? Like, no, I demand. I want tangible. It's not going to work. He's a difficult interview from that stretch. But I've realized now, after interviewing him a couple dozen times, just ask your questions. Ask your questions you want to ask. If he doesn't answer them, it's not on you, it's on him. And he's a master of talking and saying, not a lot, which I go back and forth. You don't want your GM, no GM is going to be like, let me show you guys this plan that I put together. These are the guys we're going after, right?
Here are my files to my computer. I got you. Yeah.
Here's the secret files. They're not going to do that. But you also just can't have a guy that just ignores, your question entirely and says, no, we like where our team is. It really sounded to me on the Zoom and then today's interview is they want to put 2023 so far behind them, flush it down the toilet, let it go, and just refocus. That's one way to do it. It's not the way I think it should be done, but my opinion really does not count. It really does not matter. They do not care about my opinion as far as how I think, or what they should do or how they should go about judging what happened in 2023. That's the thing that they'll never understand, though. We don't understand how difficult it is to put together a winning roster. They don't understand how difficult it is to we're the ones that have to read all the tweets. We're the ones that get the phone calls. We're the ones that get the DMs on Twitter. AJ Preller's, for all, he's insulated. He can make his moves and do what he wants. You can disagree with it or agree with it. He doesn't care. He's going to make his moves. We have to wake up. We got to go in. We got to open Twitter. We got to read it. We got to be the voice of the fans. We have to defend the team sometimes. We have to rip the team sometimes. That's why I get so frustrated, towards the end of the year if it's not going well, is it's like, no, you guys are right. I have no defense. I can't defend that or whatever. It's a hard sport to cover, as you know. It's a lot of games. The NFL is 17 games. BFD, who can't cover 17 football games?
And it's the same storyline each week.
Each week's the same thing, every week.
I want to say, I think what we should do is, I think they would love to invest in the Men in Black, like memory eraser thing. Get in on that. I'll show you analytics.
You could give it to most every Padre fan out there too, because I don't get the sense anyone really enjoyed this season. And last year, you got to the NLCS, but it was so magical around here, beating the Dodgers. It was magical, and to be robbed of that again, when you would have guaranteed that they were making the playoffs. Jessica, I would have bet anything I own that they would make the playoffs. Anything I own, I would have said, you're out of your mind. And I think I did say, you're out of your mind.
This season?
Yeah, this season.
When would that bet occur? Like heading into like spring training or?
Oh yeah, once we were sitting at spring training, we were literally talking about, okay, for the playoffs next year, let's try to do this. We were planning.
When did that stop?
All-Star break. That's when I kind of knew it was over. And it didn't matter who they went and got at the deadline. So much had happened, so much had come out, so much stuff we heard. At that point, I went, this is hopeless. This is utterly hopeless. It does not, they would need to win so many games in the second half to get people's trust back or their love back. It was so uninspired the first half. I knew at the deadline it's over. It's absolutely over. So you had a few more months to cover.
And the one thing that I love that you and Ben asked AJ, I believe it was Ben who asked, but the one thing that I appreciated was a message to the fans. I think that's an important thing to ask. And AJ mentioned we have a good group of core players, and you mentioned them. But is that enough? Because you mentioned the depth. You mentioned how AJ talks to the media. I don't want to say what should he have said because it's just Preller's personality. It is what it is. Yeah. But what's the message you would have loved if you were in the GM seat to give to the fans?
Honestly, I would have come out and said, this is on me, 100%. I'm the architect of this team. We've run out of pitching the last couple of seasons. We haven't had the depth that we needed. I cannot believe that I have to sit here in front of you guys today and let you know that we did not make the playoffs. That is not going to happen again. We've got these guys locked up. I'm going to build around them. I'm going to do a better job. I'm going to be a better communicator. I'm going to talk to my guys in the clubhouse and let them know if there's issues, come to me. We don't need to go to the Athletic. We don't need to go to Ben and Woods. We don't need to go to anywhere else. Let's keep that stuff in-house and let's go out and win a World Series. But that all starts with me. Clearly, my guys felt that they needed to speak anonymously instead of just coming to me or Bob. But that's got to stop. We're a family. We need to act like a family. We love you, fan base. You're the best. Thank you so much for sticking with us. We don't deserve it right now, but we will be back. And I will absolutely bust my ass to make sure that I make the changes necessary. And it starts with me. I got to look in the mirror. Jessica, I'm married. I'm in therapy. I go and work on myself. It's really hard work to look in the mirror. It is. I've been talking about it on the air all the time. it's so hard when you actually do the work to peel the things away and go, oh, maybe I am the problem. Maybe I am, this or that. Maybe I could do better at this. It's really hard, gut wrenching, embarrassing work to do. And I don't know that anybody is willing to do it necessarily. So that's what I would have said. That's what I would have done. It's not just eyewash, though. I really would have done the work and would do the work. But you have to want to change. That's the main thing. Is you got to want it.
And it's so interesting when you go down the rabbit hole of analytics, and then at the end of the day, there's still a human making some of these decisions, and
No question.
it's crazy. So let's shift gears. And one thing that you said, you want to be the voice of the fans. And there's a responsibility to that because you're still a member of the media in a capacity. So how do you find that balance of that's a lot? I'd rather have more of just a media role than be the voice of the fans. Voice of the fans, that stresses me out because it's such a relationship that you have to have that I don't know if I can handle because that's just so much love and passion and hate and all these other words, and you have to be the voice of them, but you still have to have a certain journalistic integrity. How do you find that balance?
I find the balance, Jessica, by not being the typical member of the media. Like, I don't watch games in the press box. I can't stand being in the press box. Why? Because I like to cheer. I cheer. I root and yell and scream. And like, this is one of my more embarrassing stories, but I had to leave when the Padres beat the Dodgers in the playoffs, and Hannah and I missed the game-winning hit, the game-winning rally. Why? Because I couldn't watch the game there anymore because I was screaming at the television in this little area. And Hannah's like, "You're losing your mind. We have to go home." So I missed it. So you're not going to find Jeff Passan doing that. So I don't. I put myself. I'm one of them. I'm not one of the media. I don't. I'll go down on the field a little bit, maybe 5 times a year, just to say what's up, dap guys up. We interview players and stuff at spring training. So I don't really look at myself. I'm a fan. I'm a fan that like got lucky and gets to do radio on the flagship. But I don't look at myself as a journalist. I certainly do the work. I talk to as many people as I can. But I do spend a lot of time listening to the fans. And look, it's not easy. I had to take probably 90 days off Twitter this year because I found myself in an argument with a nameless, faceless person. And my son asked me a question and I snapped at him. Why? Because I was in the middle of an argument with some stranger that had 4 followers, and I snapped at my child and I go, "That's it. I'm done. You can't handle it anymore." And I put it away for 3 months. I came back around the trade deadline, and because it was you need Twitter for work. Like, you have to have it. I was days behind on everything. But it was good for me, and it made me start to give less of an F what anybody thinks, and we do have their ear. The Padres are probably not super happy, with how we've handled the last couple of months, but I mean, we've been fair. It's been bad.
Well, I mean, when you say that the Padres aren't super happy, do you mean PR?
Yeah, that's just a guess. I don't know. I've never heard one word. They've never ever. I will say this: they have never ever come to us and said that was too much.
I was going to say, I feel like they definitely support you. And I know the players do. I was going to ask about that too. I feel like you have a successful, just, rapport with them. And like you joke around like Hannah and Jake Cronin, like that relationship and shit like that, because I feel like that's so needed and it's so rare. And I guess, I mean, I feel like, San Diego sports media is definitely growing over the years. So you can afford to have somebody who's the fan and that's pun intended slightly. So that helps in certain regard because you get to introduce an extension of the fan to the player and the player to the fan as well. So that's definitely a positive.
It's funny. I leave them alone. I don't go down. They're not going to find me around their locker at 3 o'clock because I've got two kids that get out of school at that time. I've got I do a morning show, so I'm up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm not going to be down there post game. I've never been in a post game scrum, never once. I've rarely seen the last 3 outs of a game in person because I love to consume the game on our radio with our radio product with Jesse and Tony, Jesse Agler and Tony Gwynn Jr. I love the television product. I love being with my family, and I love watching baseball. And I do mornings. I take my morning show more seriously than I take the job of being a credentialed media member. I don't need the free food in the press box. I've got food at home. I like being here. I don't bother them. I'm not constantly following them around with a mic, like, hey, can I get an interview? It's just not who I am. I still remain in awe a little bit of like, oh my God, that is Manny Machado. Like still, uh, and so there's still that thing. I just don't. I talk to them in spring training. We bust some balls. We have some fun. We do jokes, and we're a morning show at the end of the day. So our job is to set people up on kind of a good path for the day. We have some laughs. The worst part about this season, Jessica, is that our show has gotten way too serious. Because the baseball team has we had all these expectations and they didn't play well, so we got way too serious this year, and I miss having fun and enjoying it. So that's the thing that bums me out the most. But it's such an easy one for me. Like I love the guys. I do. I love them. I want them to win. I don't bother them too much. And I always make the joke, they give you the media credential. And I'm like, man, to give me a credential is really to kind of throw it away because I just don't use it much. And I certainly don't abuse it. But I'm down, 5, 6 games max a season and that's it.
And I think that that's so important. And it's kind of interesting. You mentioned the TV product and everything else. When you're watching the industry from afar and what you're able to do, there's TV, there's social media. We know everybody is embracing digital now, and radio's there, podcasting, you have your foot in a little bit of everything. What have you noticed as far as the transition over the years of sports radio coverage? Because now you're writing articles off of your stuff. It's,
Yeah.
you put a camera in front of y'all, and that's a whole different thing as far as the platform goes. What have you noticed? Because it's are you embracing it all? Do you want it just to go back to the way it was? Or
No, I love it because, and this is the thing is, February will be my 14th year in San Diego doing radio. And I always kind of make the joke of 14 years in a dying industry is really good. Our ratings have never been higher. Number one morning show in town. Very proud of that. Very proud of working with Ben and Paul. The station's number one. Dude, I mean, it's right there. Like you can see. I love the thing I love the most about it is, it's trade deadline time. I got to listen to Ben and Woods. I have to be there when they see the news when Juan Soto signs or Manny Machado signs. That's my favorite part of it. It's immediate. So if you want to get Mud or Don or Jesse or Tony's take on it, you got to wait till the game starts. No, you get it right there on the radio station. It's the quickest way to connect with no emergency podcast when everybody gets off of work. It's like I just tuned to 97.3 The Fan. Ben and Woods got me. I would lose my mind if I had to wait. That's why I love doing mornings because I'm first. I'm first. Get to react to last night before anybody else. Not going to steal anybody's ideas, any of their takes. These are all mine, good or bad.
before I let you go, talk Padres fans off the ledge right now.
I wish I could. Actually,
He's like, I'll bring snacks and I'll jump with you.
I think next year. Hey, look, we don't know what the roster is going to look like. Yes, the core is there. We have no pitching. We have very little pitching. You're not going to win anything with two starters, and that's what we have right now. So I wish that I could say, guys, don't worry about it. This was an anomaly. We're going to run it back. It's going to be great. I cannot in good conscience sit here and tell you that today. We're losing Josh Hader. He's going to walk in free agency. We're losing Blake Snell, who's going to win a Cy Young. How do you lose Josh Hader, Blake Snell, Michael Walker, Seth Lugo, maybe Nick Martinez, and go, we're fine. We're going to be good. I can't do it. I wish I could tell you. I will say I'm still excited to watch Juan, hopefully. I'm very excited to watch Fernando, Manny. Xander gets it right in this year, and Croney makes a rebound. Yeah, I still love these guys with all of my heart. I really do. But I can't tell you. I can't tell you. I can't. I can't tell you you're going to win more games next year than you did this year. I just can't. I wish I could. I'd be after the proclamations I made about this season. I would be the dumbest guy ever to come and be like, you know what? We're going to run it back. We're going to win 100 games. Like now, the way my head is working, I'm like, we're winning 60 games, and we're all just going to be mired in hell for the next decade.
Oh, it's
That's
tough.
what they
Well,
did. That's what this season did to me. It broke me.
Yeah, and I appreciate your honesty. I will say one of my favorite moments this season was Xander coming up behind Bob and just being like, I'm here for you. I know this wasn't your fault. That was a really cool moment.
Really, that picture in the dugout, the video, yeah, it was really cool. I mean, and Xander, I've been a little bit tough on Xander this year. Xander came from Boston, and he was saying things where I'm like, if you said that in Boston, they would have murdered you. You know what I mean? Like they would have murdered you. And I will say, like, I don't get why guys won't come here to San Diego. And I think, it used to be really the case where guys would be like, what do I got? 2 years left in this game. I'll sign in San Diego. I can play golf. It's beautiful. I want it to turn into, this is a baseball city. All we care about is winning games for Padres fans. That's what I want to hear from the players next year, of like, we're doing it for our city, for each other, for you guys, the fans. That's what I want to hear. I don't want to hear anymore like, well, I mean, look what I've done in my career. It's really good. Like, I want to hear like, we're going to bleed for San Diego, because they all make a lot of money to do it. It's a great place to do it, and you have a fan base there. We don't care if you go down swinging. We don't care. Like, if you go down in the playoffs, you get beat by a juggernaut Braves or Phillies. Okay, man. Like, that happens. That's baseball. What happened this year, that cannot happen again. It just can't. And I know they're up against it pitching wise and things like that, but it just can't happen again. They got to figure it out. They really do.
They're probably the team that I'm really, I don't want to say excited. It's going to be interesting to see their off season.
Well, that's one thing I will say. It's never boring covering this team. I was talking to a buddy on the drive home today. He called me and he's like, hey, great job with A.J. Preller. He's a tough interview. I said, he is. And I said, but I will say, this isn't like covering the Royals or anybody else where you're like, like, shoot, even the Royals have a lot of stuff to be happy about. I mean, every team's got something, you can look toward the future. But with the Padres, you're like, dude, they're never out of the headlines. And rarely is it for something good these days, but it's a joy to cover. I'm very lucky to do it. But yeah, they've turned me into a little bit more of a cynic after this year. I just couldn't believe my eyes.
Yeah.
I just couldn't believe it. But no, it's going to be interesting, and we'll see. I mean, Ben and I said it this week. This is going to be the most general managing A.J. Preller's had to do in a while, because if payroll is really coming down and you got decisions to make, I'm so glad it's not me. I'm so glad.
His time to shine, really. Yeah.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Yeah. And he can do it. He can do it. So we'll see what happens. But I'm fine with the season being over. I'm enjoying watching the playoffs very, very much. It's so fun to just talk shit about other teams. That's the best part.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Even though you're out of it, you're like, I don't care.
I feel like I have to like, oh yeah, I feel like I have to do an A's thing, but like I don't. So I'm like, I can concentrate on other things. And it was also just a strange season. Like obviously we weren't exposed to our respective divisions as much. So like with the Astros heading, I'm like, I didn't watch that many Astros games this season because I was so used to like last season where we played them like 83 times, it felt like.
Yep.
And so nowadays I have to learn about way more teams. but I also got to see those teams because we played them.
Yeah, it's so fun. I loved it. I loved it. And now I'm like, ooh, damn, these Twins are pretty fun. And, these Rangers are unbelievable. And a bunch of teams you don't really get to see a ton of. But I love the playoffs. You couldn't drag me away, from watching MLB playoffs, even though the Pods aren't in it. But, hey, listen, onward and upward. All you can do is try. And I expect them to, they're under the gun. So it's going to be an interesting one in 24. It always is around here. It's never boring.
I was going to say every Padres article I've written over the last 2 weeks it'll be an interesting offseason.
Yeah. Interesting is the best way to put it.
I was thinking of this season, the term I used a lot was weird. And this isn't just A's. This is MLB. I've said it with the Padres. I've said it with the Astros. I've said it with the AL West period has been weird. So It's just the entirety of baseball has been weird. It's not maybe the most intellectual term, but it's the best one. It's the most definitive one.
Yeah, the intellectual term that I went for probably the most on the air. I think I set a record for saying the word confounding 75,000 times this year. This team is confounding. They are confounding. They scored 12 runs yesterday.
That's your drinking word.
Understand? Confounding.
Confounding. That's beautiful.
Wow.
I had to write that down because it's such a good word.
It's a great word, and it totally fits.
Multiple syllables. I'm always a fan.
Exactly.
You're the best. Thanks so much for stopping by.
My pleasure. Anytime.
That was my chat with Steve Woods over there at 97.3 The Fan. He is one of the co-hosts of Ben and Woods. Early in the morning, he likes to be first because you know what Ricky Bobby said, if you ain't first, you're last. And he actually talked to A.J. Preller. This was on Friday, October 6th. So a few days before we actually published this, just to give you a heads up, nothing certainly changed. Preller didn't really say much on Ben and Woods in addition to the Zoom that he gave the media, but definitely something to tune into. And a guy that I just love listening to. I feel like the state of sports talk radio has certainly adjusted over time. So it's good to hear from him, and definitely make sure that you're listening to him if you are a big Padres fan, because he definitely has your best interest at heart. It's definitely a difficult task to be so fan driven and be a host in sports. Is a very difficult balance to have, and he certainly dominates that. So thanks for tuning in to Short and to the Point. For Philip, who's always putting up with my crap, I'm so appreciative. We have good running internet, Philip, so it's great to see. Jessica Kleinschmidt here saying goodbye. Make sure you're listening and following everything on the Comeback and Awful Announcing, and subscribing to this and liking it, giving it all the love, and follow our YouTube channel over at Awful Announcing. See you next time.
Want even more short and to the point? Follow Jessica at Kleinschmidt JD and head over to thecomeback.com and awfulannouncing.com.